Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a playthrough of a game called Darkest Night. I know there's a number of run-throughs out there, tutorials on how to play this, but as you know with all of my videos they're more or less playthroughs, not tutorials. So I don't typically go through the rules, but just watch and follow along, and I try to get all the rules right as best I can. So Darkest Night is a game by Jeremy Leonard, published by Victory Point Games. It is a 1 to 4 player cooperative solitaire game, which plays very well solitaire, but you do have to play all 4 characters. So the set I'm using is the Necromancer bundle, which I bought from the Victory Point website. Now this set comes with the core game plus, I believe, 2 expansions. At least the first 2 expansions and a character expansion called the Nymph, which I'm going to use as one of the characters for this playthrough. So basically I have everything set up, so let's get to it. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so the board is set up already. We've got our heroes, 4 heroes set up to start in the monastery. We have the 4 artifacts already out where they're supposed to be. You have to put out a blight based on a map card that I had drawn to start the initial surge of blights in the game. The Necromancer starts in the ruins. We have an evil presence in the forest. We have a unholy aura in the mountains. Zombies in the castle. Corruption in the swamp. Spies in the ruins. And shades in the village. For our heroes... I have chosen the Rogue with the skills Vanish, Ambush, and Eavesdrop. The Druid with Camouflage, Animal Companion, and Sprite form. The Wizard, who has Lightning Strike, Invisibility, and Teleport. And the Nymph, who has Bent Bow, Earth Meld, and Gust. Now these were 3 of the 4 starting skills. You choose 3 of them, and then one of them gets shuffled into each of their skill deck. So as we progress in the game, we'll be able to draw more abilities for each of them. Alright, so the game turns are pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So the heroes get to go in any order. So you have your hero turn, where at the start of the turn you see if you lose any of your secrecy, based on a couple of varying conditions. You draw an event card if you're not starting your turn in the monastery, since on the first turn we're all in the monastery, we're not going to have to draw one for the first turn. Then your heroes can take an action, and the actions are listed here. So you can travel, you can hide, you can attack, you can search, you can pray, retrieve a holy relic, which we need 3 keys to do, and we can use a power of our choice. And then you do end of turn effects. So if there's any blights on your space, those blights, if they have certain effects, you'll have to deal with them. So for example, if a blight attacks you, it will attack you, but you cannot kill the blight. You can only either evade it or defend it. In order to destroy a blight, you need to attack it as your action. And then the turn ends. And if you're in the monastery, you get some secrecy. That's pretty much. And then the Necromancer goes. So he moves, he calls more blights, and makes things even more difficult. So, and he moves up the darkness track. So I guess we can jump to turn 1. Okay, before we start the first turn, so the object of the game basically is to kill the Necromancer, or bring 3 of the artifacts back to the monastery. But in order to kill the Necromancer, we're going to need at least an artifact, and the person carrying the artifact is going to be on the same place with the Necromancer, have no blights there, and hit him with a 7, on a dice roll, which obviously is not possible with a 6-sided die. So the artifact gives you +1, so you basically have to roll a 6, plus your 1 is 7. As long as you're holding the artifact, he's dead, you win the game. If the threat track reaches 30, and our, I guess at any point if we get 4 blights in the monastery, we also lose. So blights will start going into the monastery, I believe, as you get 4 in any location. Any overflow goes into the monastery, and there's a lot of nasty things that happen as the threat meter goes up. So like I said, with a 30, any new blights anything that would cause the darkness to go up another level, we'll put more blights in the monastery. So you want to, it's kind of a race against time to kill this guy or get those artifacts back. Like I said, every artifact you need 3 keys to get the artifact. In order to get 3 keys, you got to search the location. So every location has a different search difficulty, and some guys are better than others at searching. So we're gonna try to get that done early if we possibly can, while managing the blights. So let's get to it. So I guess I'll start with the rogue. So it's the druid. Alright, so here we go, the rogue. So remember, we get 1 action, and because it's the start of the turn, we don't have to draw an event card because we're all in the monastery. So this turn we're not going to draw any event cards. But for my action, I'm going to just go ahead and move. So I'm going to move him to the mountains, where we have a blight on Holy Aura, which basically is a passive effect. It does -1 die when you're fighting, so it just makes fighting a lot harder. So he's moved, he's taken his action, and the end of turn effect would be typically on these blights, but this one doesn't have any, it's just a passive effect, so he doesn't have to do anything, so it's not attacking him. So his turn is done. Okay, so next up we're gonna get a little crazy early on. So I'm gonna use the wizard's action. So again, we're in the monastery, so we don't lose any secrecy, and we don't have to draw an event card. But what I'm going to do for his action is use the spell Teleport, which we exhaust it to move directly to any location, gaining 2 secrecy up to 5. Now his secrecy is already at 5, so he's not going to gain any, but we're going to exhaust that ability, and we're going to teleport him. So we take our wizard, so he's teleporting over to the castle, which is normally 2 spaces away. And the reason I'm bringing him there is because it's got a pretty easy search difficulty of 2, but it has zombies, so he's going to have to deal with them at the end of this turn. Okay, so because the wizard's going to end his turn in this castle with zombies. Now zombies are a blight that actually has attack ability. So like the number up here is basically their attack strength or their health, right? Here you've got a 5 shield, which means I have to defend with a 5 or better to survive that, or I have to elude with a 3 or better to get away from it. If I fail on either of those, I take a wound. Now the way the wounds work in this game, you have a grace. So you have grace. So the way this game works with wounds is that you could either take the wound, or you could spend 1 grace, which is here, to not take the wound. Now, if you take the wound, you're going to die, so you basically have to take the grace, spend the grace. So basically, you spend the grace, you nullify the wound, but if you're ever down to 0 grace, and you take an additional wound, this character's dead. So obviously the wizard is going to have to use one of his abilities. And I could fight with 3 dice if I use a lightning strike, which is a tactic card, or I could activate invisibility, which would give me plus 2 dice when eluding. So I could probably go invisible. I think that's probably the best bet, because I only need a 3 here, and that'll kind of guarantee his safety. And the next round I could fight him, be better off. I'd rather fight him and kill him, but right now I just have to avoid him if possible. So I will take invisibility. So the tactic is to activate it. So we put it on his player card, and I get plus 2 when eluding. So normally when you elude, you get 1 die. So I get plus 2. I'll take 2. Now, if I have to deactivate and exhaust this card, if I fail a combat or use another tactic. So I'm not fighting, I'm just eluding right now, so I'm just going to try to vanish. So let's see what happens. Alright, so the wizard's invisible. We're going to get 3 dice, and we're going to see if we can get a 3 or better on any of them. We rolled 2 3s and a 6, so successfully the way. So we're safe, he doesn't find us, and we end our turn. So let's move on to the druid. So for the druid's first turn, we're gonna go ahead and activate one of his forms. So he's gonna go into sprite form, because that way I can kind of move around the board without having to deal with any blights. So once this is active, it ignores Blight's effects unless the Necromancer is present, and you cannot gain any grace. So he's going to turn into a sprite, and that's basically all you can do this turn in the monastery. So he's gonna have a short turn. And then we'll finish up with our Nymph. So for the Nymph, I'm actually going to I'm going to go ahead and move her, because I'm going to try to, next turn, use her Gust ability, which gives me a lot of different options here. So like I could search, then attack, search twice, attack twice. So she could be good for searching. So I will have to move her first though. So our Nymph is going to just move down to the forest, and the forest has a search difficulty of 4, similar to the mountains. And there's an evil presence here. So much like the Unholy Aura, this one just has a passive effect, but this one's -1 die when eluding. So we don't have to do anything at the end of this turn, so she's just going to sit there, no end of turn effects, and then she's done. So that's all the heroes, and we are moving on to the Necromancer. So the Necromancer's turn. So the first thing that happens on the Necromancer's turn is Darkness meter down here goes up 1. And we have to roll a die. And now it would have gone up an additional 1 if we had a Desecration Blight. But there's no Desecration Blight out there. So we've got to roll a die for the Necromancer to see what he does. Okay, so now the Necromancer's dice roll is going to mean 2 things. The first thing it's going to mean is you have to test all of the heroes' secrecy. If it's higher than the secrecy, the Necromancer is going to move a space towards that hero, or the closest hero if there's multiples with secrecy lower than his roll. And if it's not, we'll see what it is first. So we rolled a 6. So he is actually higher than the Wizard. And also the Nymph, because she also moved, so she's down to 5 as well. So I'd say the closest one, the Wizard's 2 away, the Nymph is 1. So he's going to move to the forest where our Nymph is. So yeah, that's not good. Alright, and then he creates a blight in his location. So the way you create a blight, alright, so I moved him over to the Nymph. And the way you create a blight is we draw a map card. And on that map card, he is in the forest. So in the forest, we look at the monster row, and he pulls zombies. So we just add a zombie token to that location. So now there's 2 blights in this location. So it's getting a little crowded here for the Nymph. So we got to figure out what we're going to do next turn. But that basically is all he does, and then that ends his turn. And now we go back to the heroes. Okay, so for the hero's turn, we're going to start with the rogue. And the first thing we check is to see if the Necromancer is in our space, or if we're carrying a Holy Relic. We're not, so his secrecy doesn't go down. So because he's not in the monastery anymore, he has to draw an event card. So the event card is we have a ritual. So you may spend 1 grace and lose 1 secrecy to cancel this event. Count the blights in your location. So there's 1 here. So I would get a new blight unless I sacrifice 1 grace and 1 secrecy. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to sacrifice them because I don't want any more blights in this location. Alright, so for our rogue, and one thing I didn't do before, which basically to keep track of who's gone, is to turn that over so that you know that that character's gone. So we're going to lose 1 grace and 1 secrecy. So he's doing all right. So it's not a big deal. But now, because we are in this location, I have a choice. I could fight this Unholy Aura. All right. So in the mountains, I have a choice. I could either fight this Holy Aura and get rid of it, but it's really not threatening me that bad right now. Or I could use one of my abilities. So I think we're going to use Eavesdrop. Now what Eavesdrop does is, as an action, I can spend 1 secrecy to search with 2 dice instead of 1. So we'll do that. We'll spend our secrecy, and then we'll search. Alright, so our eavesdrop skill gives us 2 dice, as opposed to 1. We have to beat the search difficulty, which are greater. We have to be greater than or equal to the search difficulty, so it's a 4. So we just need to roll 2, and then we get to draw a treasure card, or a map card, basically. So we failed on both accounts, which is bad. Okay. So, his turn is basically over, and that was a waste. So, let's move on to the next guy. Alright, so our wizard's going to get a turn, but because he is in the castle, he has to draw an event card. So we've got looters, and they can only be evaded. If we evade them, we gain a secrecy. If we fail, we exhaust all of his powers. So this could be very, very bad. So we've got to try to evade with the wizard. But actually, if you remember, our wizard is still invisible because he casted invisibility. It's still active, so he gets an additional 2 die to evade. So we're actually going to roll 3 die to evade, and we just need to beat a 4. And he did. So successful. He gains 1 secrecy. So I will move the wizard secrecy up to 6. And let's see what he's going to do now. Alright, so he doesn't have to exhaust his powers, but he's here with a zombie. And the zombie has a combat basically of 5. So we need to get a 5 or better, which is going to be tough. But he does have a spell called Lightning Strike. So if we fight with Lightning Strike, we could fight with 3 dice and exhaust if we succeed. Now, remember our invisibility, we have to deactivate and exhaust it if we fail a combat or use another tactic. So because we're going to use Lightning Strike, we are no longer invisible because he's coming out of hiding. And we have to use our Lightning Strike. Now, if we succeed at this attack, we have to exhaust it. So he's not going to have any powers that are available after this turn. Alright, so we've got 3 dice for the Lightning Strike. And if we fail, according to the zombie, we're going to take a wound or have to give up a grace. But if we roll a 5 or better, we kill this guy. And we rolled a 6. So we got him. So he gets removed from the board. And he's gone. Okay, because every time you attack, you have to lose 1 secrecy. So I will bring his secrecy back down to 5. But he's cleared the castle. That's his action. He's exhausted his Lightning Strike, so he's got no more abilities that he can possibly use. So he's got to... the only way to refresh them are to pray at the monastery or to hide. So next turn looks like he's probably going to hide. And then he'll start searching the castle. But that is the end of the wizard's turn. Alright, so now for our druid. Remember, he's in sprite form, so he ignores blights. So what he's going to do is he's going to start venturing out. So he's going to head over to the village. Now there are shades here, which would normally attack him. But because he is in sprite form, he gets to ignore blight's effects unless the necromancer is present. Since the necromancer's not here, he's good to go. But he does have to draw an event. Actually, no, he doesn't have to draw an event card because he was in the monastery when he started his turn. So the event card always comes before the action. So event card, monastery, nope. Village, he's going to end his turn. There's no end of turn effect. So because he moved, every time you move, you actually go up 1 secrecy, but he's already maxed. So I think you go up to 5. So he doesn't go up any. But that ends his turn. So it's a pretty quick turn. Okay, so we're on the nymph now. So she's in a heap of trouble. We'll start her turn off. Now she is on the necromancer space, so she loses secrecy right off the bat. So she's down to 4. And the next is an event. So because she's not in the monastery, she draws an event card. So the event card's a horde. Now you compare it to your secrecy. So her secrecy just got knocked down to 4. So she fights a small Horde, which is good. That's probably the easiest one out of these. Just to defend a 4 or elude with a 3. So let's see what her abilities are. Now, if you remember, tactics are used during these combat or interaction type phases where actions are used as your action as opposed to moving. So she has two options here. She could do Bent Bow or Earth Meld. So she could either fight with 2 or exhaust to elude successfully without rolling. So is that worth it? I think so. Let's do that. So we're going to exhaust Earth Meld. So she's just going to kind of vanish. Alright, now for her action, she definitely doesn't want to stay on the same square as the Necromancer. So what she's going to do is she's going to move. So she's going to move to the ruins. And by moving, she goes up in secrecy to a maximum of 5. And she's going to end her turn in the ruins. Now in the ruins, there are spies, so we have to deal with the end of turn effects. So you lose 1 secrecy each turn. So basically she gained 1, she lost 1. So she stays at 4 for this turn. So maybe next turn she can try to deal with those guys and get rid of them. But that ends her turn. So that was all the characters. They've all finished their turn. So now we go to the Necromancer. Okay, now for the Necromancer's turn. So we've got the darkness going up to 2. And we've got to roll a die. So Necromancer gets a 2. So that's not below, I mean, it's not above anybody's secrecy. So we look at the map, it shows us that a 2 sends him to the ruins. So he goes to the ruins and follows our nymph. We draw a map card. Map card says that the ruins gets a corruption. So we'll add corruption to the ruins. And the corruption just gives, there's no bonuses on that, so just another blight. So that is the end of the Necromancer turn. Back to the hero. So I think we'll end this this video now, and we will continue in part 2. Hope you enjoyed.